Okay, we are going to get started here because I have 12 o'clock on the dot. And welcome everyone to this week's Wednesday webinar, which is kicking off our spring series, which will go all the way through to the end of April. And let me tell you, we have some awesome topics and presenters lined up, so you won't want to miss any of them. And at the end of our time together today, I will share a little bit more information on what's coming up next. My name is Allison McWilliams, the Assistant Vice President for Mentoring and Alumni Personal and Career Development here at Wake Forest. And I'm so glad that so many of you have made the choice to join me today to talk about a topic that is so near and dear to my heart, which is mentoring. In fact, my primary role at Wake Forest is to help people across our community in building and developing effective mentoring relationships and programs. And I strongly believe that these relationships are absolutely critical to our success, both personally and professionally. And that's no different, even in this weird time that we're going through. In fact, I think this weird time makes it even more important that we all know how to seek out and build great relationships with other people. We are all super disconnected right now. If we're lucky, we get to work from home, which is both a gift and a privilege. But that gift and privilege does not come without a cost. Mentoring is all about relationships, deep, intentional relationships of care. And if there's anything we all need right now, it is more connection and less virtual distance to feel that we are supported by a community of care. And in fact, research consistently demonstrates the importance of social connection for long term well being, including behavioral, psychosocial, and physiological outcomes. One particularly striking quote that I like comes from the beginning of a review of research on the health impacts of social relationships. Captors use social isolation to torture prisoners of war to drastic effect. Social isolation of otherwise healthy, well functioning individuals eventually results in psychological and physical disintegration and even death. So, how many of us are currently feeling like prisoners in our own home right at this moment? So today, we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about how to seek out and build these relationships for our own benefit. So whether it's for professional development, personal growth, or just a bit of social connection and support, we all need strong developmental networks. And let me remind you of the title of this webinar. Find the mentorship you need, not just what you want. Building effective relationships, whether it's mentoring, friendships with a significant other, with a coworker, or people you supervise, it all takes work. And it's not work to be taken lightly. And it's least effective when you sit back and expect other people to do that work for you. So if you take nothing else away from our time together, I hope that it's this: you do the work. After all, if you don't care about your own growth and development, then why should anyone else? And so, on that note, towards the end of our time, I'm going to ask you to do just a little bit of work. So, grab a pen and a piece of paper if you don't have one already. Before we get started, as always, let's do some housekeeping. You all are muted and your videos are turned off. That has been done intentionally. If you have issues or questions as we go, please put those in the chat box. And I've asked my colleague Megan Hoyt to monitor that for us. And if we have time, I will get to those questions at the end. And if not, we are recording this webinar and you all will be sent that recording in a follow-up email along with some bonus resources. And I will definitely answer your questions there. And then we're going to try out something new today. So at the end of our time together, we will stop the recording and give time for folks to leave if they want. But we're also going to open up time for just about 15 minutes of open conversation for those who might want to stay. So I'll say more about that when we get to that point. Before we dive into this, let me introduce my team. You see me on the left there, as well as my colleagues, Lauren and Megan. In our roles, we support students, faculty, and staff and alumni and lead two offices, the Mentoring Resource Center and the Alumni Personal and Career Development Center here at Wake. You see on the screen there our two websites and all the ways to connect with us, which we hope you will do. We have a huge archive of advice pieces, videos, webinars like this, online courses you can take, and other tools to help you, especially in your personal and career development process. So do take advantage of those resources. And since we are talking about mentoring, let me just take a moment to specifically point out our Mentoring Resource Center website, which is chock full of tools and resources available as well. So I invite you to check that out. So we have three key takeaways for our brief time together today, which certainly won't cover everything there is to know about mentoring, but hopefully will give you some strategies to get started. So first, we're going to do some level setting and talk about what mentoring is and just why it matters so much. And then we'll look at a very simple plan to help you to really do this work in the right way. And as part of that, we'll look at the 6 key people that you need to have in your network. So, one of the reasons that I really love mentoring as a developmental tool is that it is experience based. And what that means is that the individuals participating in the relationship get to bring their past experiences into that relationship. And in fact, as we'll see a bit later, this is one of the key components that you should think about when you are seeking out a mentor. Does this person have the experience that I need so that I will grow and develop in the ways that I am seeking? And it also means that we each enter into these relationships with prior experiences with or assumptions about what mentoring is and what it should look like. And when we do workshops, we often ask participants to generate a list of what effective mentoring it looks like or what effective mentors do. And these are just a few of the items that come up. So a mentor is an advisor, a sponsor, a guide, a champion, a coach, a wise counselor, a listener, a connector. You might also add accountability partner, someone who challenges you, someone who supports you. These are all positive things. And sometimes this is what a mentor does, and sometimes not. And if the mentoring partners aren't on the same page about that, then there are going to be problems. So, for example, I may assume that my mentor is going to be a sponsor for me and help me to get promoted. But my mentor may think that's not their role at all, and in fact, be a little offended by that expectation. So, what's going to be the result? It's going to be a broken relationship. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a mentor serving as a sponsor, nor with one choosing not to do so. But when the support that you've identified doesn't match your goal, you're going to have problems. And sometimes people have completely wrong assumptions about mentoring. So I've heard people say that the mentor's role is to provide all the right answers. This is false. I once heard a senior leader here at Wake say that a mentor's job is to tell their mentee that they are awesome all the time. Again, this is false and not the kind of relationship that I'm looking for. So, what is this thing that we call mentoring and why does it matter? First, let's look at some history. Mentoring goes all the way back to the time of the Odyssey. So, as you might imagine, it's evolved a bit over time. We used to think of the mentor like this, or what was sometimes called the sage on the stage. Mentoring originated out of apprenticeship models, where the mentor, who was typically an older white man, who had all the knowledge and all the wisdom and all the experience. And the mentee was an empty vessel or a blank slate, just waiting for that knowledge and the wisdom to be shared. The goal here was for the mentor to recreate himself in his own image. And then over time, we moved to more traditional mentoring models, which largely grew out of succession planning in corporate America. Again, the mentor typically is an older white male who handpicks his successor for growth and development. And that mentee may not be a blank slate, but the goal is still largely replication. And then also, because of what is known as affinity bias, the tendency here is for the mentor to sometimes unconsciously gravitate towards mentees who remind him of himself. So, this is the good old boys network in action, literally, but it happens to everyone and is one of the problems with informal mentoring relationships. When we only select people who remind us of ourselves, then a lot of people miss out on the access and opportunity to grow and develop. Which leads us to how we think about mentoring today. It's all about building a network. You may have heard this referred to as a personal board of directors or a mentoring constellation. Personally, I just like the term network. We all need broad, diverse networks of people who are in our corner, who will support us and our goals, not unconditionally, but with clear eyes and because they want to see us grow and be successful. So here's the thing, the world has changed drastically in the past year, but the world of work has been changing for a long time. No longer does work operate based on apprenticeship models. No longer do people graduate from college, join one organization, and expect to stay there for the next 40 years or more until they get their gold watch and a pension. There are no more gold watches, and the pension is dead and gone. So you have to do the work of owning your own career path. And that might mean staying with one organization, and it might be moving to 10 or 20 organizations over the course of your lifetime. And in order to be successful in building that career, you're going to need multiple people along the way to help you. There's no reason in the world to expect that the people who will be helpful to you when you first graduate will be the same people who will be helpful to you when you're moving into middle management or executive roles. And this is why you need a network. Also, we know that mentors provide several distinct roles. Mentors provide short term career support, which is about socialization when you move into a new role or organization, long term career support, which is about career pathing, and psychosocial support, which is all the great identity, values, meaning, and purpose work that helps you to figure out all that career stuff. So you might find one mentor who can do all those things for you, but that's a pretty tall order. And that's why you need a network. Strong networks also help with some of the barriers to effective mentoring. So, when you have a strong network, you are less likely to fall into the trap of what's known as cloning or that replication process that happened in those apprenticeship models. It's always important to remember that all mentoring relationships are power relationships, and there's great potential to do harm with these relationships. So, when you have a strong network, there's less opportunity for any one person to have too much power over you and your decisions. And finally, a strong network helps with what we like to call the burden of the gifted. Unfortunately, as important as I think mentoring is, most organizations still don't reward these roles, which are roles that can take up a lot of time and energy and focus. And certain people, namely women and underrepresented minorities, get unfairly burdened with these roles, which makes them less likely to be successful within their organizations. So, by having a strong network of people you can draw upon to support you, you don't unfairly burden any one person with doing your work. So we know when people are effectively mentored, and I always emphasize that word effectively because you can be ineffectively mentored, which is a whole other topic of conversation. But when people are effectively mentored, it does matter. They have greater promotion rates and career mobility. They have stronger professional identities, competence and satisfaction, lower job stress, and they're more likely to mentor others. When students are well mentored, they have greater persistence to degree, higher GPAs, are more satisfied with their institutions, and have demonstrated long term well being impacts. Mentoring does matter, but it has to be done the right way in order for it to work. And then finally, I threw this recent study in here because I think it provides some really interesting results. So these researchers studied 37,000 mentoring pairs in the sciences to try to determine what worked. And what they found was that, sure, when great scientists did that work of replication or cloning, so taking students onto their own research team and involving them in their own research and so on, which is the traditional model in the sciences, that produced great scientists as a result. But the students that became superstars were the ones who were allowed to diverge and follow their own paths and their own interests, having learned things like how to develop a research problem and how to brainstorm and how to find and work with collaborators and so on. And what I especially love is this quote at the bottom: the mentee has a big responsibility for their own success. And that certainly informs how we think about and define mentoring in our office. So for us, mentoring is a purposeful and personal relationship in which a more experienced person, the mentor, provides guidance, feedback, and wisdom to facilitate the growth and development of the less experienced person, the mentee. So I always like to stop here and point a few things out with this. First, you'll notice the use of the word mentee here and not protege. That's a personal choice. Neither we feel are awesome words. We just like protege less than we like mentee. No matter what you're calling it, there are typically two people involved, a more experienced and a less experienced person. So remember at the beginning, I said that these are experience based relationships. So it's not about age. You can be mentored by someone younger than you or who is your same age. The key is the experience differential. It is a relationship. It's purposeful and it's personal. No matter how long it lasts, there's a deeper connection here than just we chatted for a minute at the water cooler or at the beginning of that Zoom call. It's a higher level of care. What does the mentor do? They provide the benefit of all that wisdom and experience they have. They provide great feedback. But most importantly, they are a facilitator of the mentee's growth and development. The mentor is not there to do the work. In fact, the mentee should do most of the work in any mentoring relationship. So if you, as a mentor, are leaving your mentoring conversations feeling drained, then something is off kilter in that relationship. Now let's look over on the right side of the screen. Mentoring relationships are strategic interventions. So what do I mean by that? First, they are goal oriented. Just like any other strategic intervention or plan you may have, before you set off in a particular direction, you need to figure out where you're headed and why, and then figure out what are the right tools to get there. So it might be mentoring, but it might not be. And this is where many formal mentoring programs fail because people think, well, we have this problem. Mentoring's great. Let's throw a mentoring program at it and that'll fix it. And it doesn't fix it because what was needed wasn't mentoring. And the same thing happens with the relationships. So before you ever ask anyone to support you and your growth and development, first you need to figure out what it is that you're working on. And then you remember that experience part. So who is the best person to help you to meet your goals? But if you don't know your goals, you can't answer that question. And let me pause here and add that one big mistake that I see people make is they get enamored with title and position instead of focusing on what it is they actually need. So it's easy to think that the president or the CEO would be a great mentor to you because of that title. But you know what the president or the CEO doesn't have? A lot of time to mentor you. You would be far better served getting strategic about what you need and then finding the person who both has that experience and is willing and able to show up for you. Mentoring is always learning and action oriented. It's always about forward progress towards identified learning goals. And this is what distinguishes mentoring from management in particular. And if you want to know more about that, I did another webinar on that topic, which you can find on our Learn with Life After Wake platform. And mentoring is always about growth and development of the mentee. So when you are serving as a mentor, a great check-in that you can do with yourself is to make sure that you're keeping the mentee's goals in front of you at all times. If you are, then you're probably doing the right work. On the mentee side, I always want you to be thinking about these core 4 elements in every mentoring relationship. These are the building blocks to effective mentoring relationships and to your growth and development, both personally and professionally. So, first is to remember that these are relationships, and relationships take time and work to develop. So, ask yourself, how am I showing up for and with other people? How am I developing rapport and trust with other people? How am I maintaining active curiosity about other people and their experiences? Second, set some goals. So, this is the part that you do whether or not someone chooses to walk beside you on your path. What are no more than 6 month to 1 year goals you can set for yourself personally and professionally? How do you want to grow and to learn? What changes do you want to make? Where are your gaps and what do you need to fill them? Third, seek feedback. Share your goals with others and ask for their input on your direction and next steps. Stay in a place of learning and ask questions to support your growth and ask people for their input on your strength and growth areas. And then lastly, reflect on those experiences. So remember, it's all about the learning and the forward progress. What are you learning about yourself, your relationships, your values, where you find meaning and purpose, and how can you use that knowledge in the future? So these are the core 4 building blocks of every effective mentoring relationship. But you don't need a mentor to do this work. The mentor is the gravy. This is where you choose to take ownership for your growth, for your path, and for what happens next. Okay, so here is where I'm going to recommend that you grab a pen and some paper and make some notes. You won't have time here to do all of this, but just jot down enough so that you can come back later and really put some thoughtful time and work into it. So these are the 3 key questions you need to ask before you seek anyone out in some kind of mentoring relationship or any other kind of relationship. So first, and this shouldn't surprise you, what is your goal? So think personally, professionally. Sometimes I find it helpful to ask, where do I want to be in 6 months? That's different from where I am right at this moment. So ideally, you're going to have several goals, of course, but for now, just put down one. And it can be something super vague, like I want to make a job change in the next 6 months, right? Like you don't have to have all of the specifics of that figured out right at this moment. So I'm just going to give you a moment to write something down. Okay. Second is, what do you need to reach your goal? Now, remembering, mentoring is a strategic intervention, which means it's not always the right intervention. So before you jump to, well, obviously, I need a mentor, let's do some thinking on this. You might need to take a class. You might need some kind of new professional experience to grow your resume. You might need a person who is doing something other than mentoring. So before you write down your need here, let's take a look at the 6 people that you need in your network. Think of this as high relationship at the top, all the way down to no relationship at the bottom. And there's a ton of other things that you could add to this list. These are just the 6 that we feel pretty strongly about. And I know you can read, but I'm going to walk through these one by one quickly. So, a mentor, this should be very familiar to you at this point. Someone who has more experience than you in that area in which you're interested in being mentored, is willing to engage in a personal and purposeful relationship over time, right? So, a coach is very similar to a mentor, and they use a lot of the same tools and strategies. In fact, we use coaching conversation models in our mentoring training because they're so effective. But there are some key differences. A coach is skilled in asking questions and listening, encouraging you to work towards your goals, but they are not required to have experience in the area in which you are interested in being coached. They're a facilitator of skill development, of goal setting, and creating a plan of action. So, a pure coach believes that you have everything in you that you need to solve whatever problem you're working on right now. And coaches tend to be a bit more tactical, whereas mentors can be thought of as a little bit more holistic in nature. A sponsor. So remember this from our sticky notes earlier. Sponsors have become super popular recently, particularly due to a book that came out a few years ago called Forget a Mentor, Find a Sponsor. A sponsor is someone who advocates for you. They seek out opportunities, they provide connections to those opportunities, they promote you to higher ups for increased responsibility based on their own personal, political, and organizational capital. For me personally, I would never sponsor someone that I wasn't in some kind of deep level relationship with. But I can see where for some people that's not needed, nor do they want it. A wise counselor. Love these people. These folks provide those mentoring moments, but they aren't going to rise to the level of a full on mentoring relationship. So you might be struggling with an issue and think, hey, Bob is pretty good with these sorts of things. Let me go see what advice he can give me. And you go see Bob and he gives you some advice and it changes the way you think. And that's that. An accountability partner is someone who will check in with you at agreed upon points to ensure that you're staying on course with your work towards your goals. So these people aren't coaches and they don't want to be, but they're your check in people and they're super important. And then your networking contacts are the folks who can suggest opportunities, provide introductions. They may pass along your resume, but they're not going to rise to the level of a sponsor. So this is like your LinkedIn network. So here's the thing. You need each of these people in your network, but you don't necessarily need them all at the same time. Depending on what your goal is, you might need a mentor, but you might just need an accountability partner, right? And on the flip side, don't agree to be someone's full on mentor if you only have the capacity to be a wise counselor. So it's far better to be honest about what you're able to give and about what you're looking for than to have those mismatched expectations. So take a moment, look at this list, and think about your goal. And now jot down, what do you need? What do you need to reach that goal? And it could be on that list or it could be something else entirely. And then the last part is, who do you know who can help? So start with your network. Start with the people you already know. Is there someone who slides into that role pretty easily? So start there. So you might have a goal about improving work-life balance. And when you look around, you can identify a couple of colleagues who seem to do this well. I would start with them. Ask for a simple coaching conversation. It might develop into something more, but it might just be a one off conversation that provides some great tools and strategies that you can put to work. Or you might have some gaps that you need to fill. And so, if that's the case, ask around, tell people what you're looking for, and see who they know. Those sorts of connections are great because they broaden your network and they're easier than a cold call. Regardless, you have to do the work to build these relationships. So remember, you wouldn't walk up to a stranger on the street and ask them to marry you. You've had to work to develop every single relationship of importance in your life, and these are no different. So, some final points. Often someone will say something to me along the lines of, I've never had a mentor, or why won't someone mentor me? And from my experience, people who do the work get the mentorship they deserve. So before you go down that road, ask yourself a few more questions. Am I paying attention? There are people around you right now who are actively trying to advise and guide you on your path. You simply aren't paying attention. So instead of asking the question, why won't anyone mentor me? Try asking the question, who is already mentoring me and how can I take better advantage of that relationship? Am I building intentional relationships? Don't sit back waiting for someone to come tap you on the shoulder and to pull you along with them. Be an active participant in your own growth and development. If you care about your future, then work on building intentional relationships with other people before you ask them to support your goals. And then, are you broadening your choices? So don't limit potential mentors and connections to the people who are immediately around you. Diversify your network, the perspectives that you're hearing. Seek out people in professional organizations and civic organizations and alumni associations. If you have the opportunity to join a formal mentoring program, do that. And then lastly, let's circle back to where we started and recognize that this is a weird time. Building relationships is hard enough without having to do it over Zoom, but it still can be done. You can still ask someone to grab virtual coffee. You can still reach out to someone for a catch up conversation. While I personally hate the video conference world that we live in right now, one benefit that I do believe it has is that it makes you much more present in the conversation and much more purposeful about how you spend your time. And those are two hallmarks of any great relationship, mentoring or otherwise. So we just scratched the surface here, but our time is drawing short. So as always, we wrap asking you to connect with us in all the ways that we have available. Join our e-newsletter and connect with us on Twitter and Instagram, and go to those websites. Check out all the resources we have available on mentoring and other topics. Let me just check real quick to see if we have any questions. Okay, looks like not. Let me make special note of some upcoming opportunities for you. So all of our upcoming programs can be found on our What's Next page, including the rest of our spring webinars. So these are just the next two. In 2 weeks, Wake alumna and professional career coach Chelsea Keene will lead us through a conversation about how to turn those strengths into your next job. And on February 24th, we will have a super special conversation with Nate French, who leads our Magnolia Scholars Program and one of his alums on the transition from first generation college student to life after college. And for those of you who are Wake alumni who are job searching, our Jumpstart course is always available to you there as well. So this is the point at which I will say, if you want to stay, in a moment, we will give it about a 1-minute warning, and then we will stop the recording and we will open up for conversation, and we'll turn on people's videos and mics for about 15 minutes. If you want to go, that's perfectly fine. We hope you have a great day. Please look for the recording both on our website, but also in your inboxes a little bit later as well. And we're so thankful that you came and joined us today. So we'll give it about a minute, and then I will stop the recording and open it up for anyone who wants to stick around.